Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of Out of the Blue. Good afternoon, David. Hello.
Episode 19. I can't believe it.
I know.
I'm surprised we made it past 3, to be honest.
No, nobody's been watching it after the third one, but
no, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
David, we are joined today by Matt McDermott from Convenzis. Hi, Matt. Nice to see you.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Mark. Hiya, how are you?
Yeah, very, very good. Matt, obviously we met when you were organising the Matt Growth and Merger Conference and were good enough to invite me along to speak at the conference, which was brilliant, actually. So before we sort of have a chat about your experience, etc., why don't you just let everybody know who you are, what you do, and what that's all about?
Yeah, no problem. So I work for a company called Convenzis Education. So I'm a director at the company. We put together conferences for the MAT space and primary, secondary school space. So ranging from the MAT Growth and Merger Conference that you're involved in, all the way through to your more specific roles like finance, school improvement, and then a national one, which will hopefully be in person next March. So looking forward to that.
Wow, actual human beings in a room.
Yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
Weird feeling.
We'll all be tested and wearing masks and socially distanced, but anyway. So, yeah. Matt, as I say, we sort of met at the Matt Growth and Merger Conference, and the thing that struck me when you were organising that was the breadth of topics that people were talking about. And I suppose what struck me was that you must have quite a good handle on the issues that Matt's face really when they're looking at growth. So just talk us through what do you find those main challenges are when a Matt's looking at growth?
Yeah, I think Matt's have always had this keyword of growth, and it's something that's thrown about a lot and has been thrown about a lot, sometimes just for the sake of it over previous years. So when you're looking at challenges, I think the overarching challenge is how big is the right adequate size for a MAT? So there's been some research put into that, which you're looking around the 8 to 10 region to get the effective kind of cost savings and procurement processes in place and a good curriculum. And then also choosing which schools to onboard into your MAT, whether they are a single academy trust currently, or whether they are a standalone school who have been quite reluctant on the MAT side of things and getting involved with a trust. So I think that's been the key challenge that I've always heard is organic growth versus going out there, being proactive, speaking to head teachers of those single academies, and knowing who fits your values as well as a trust when you put together that fancy mission statement that you probably sent hundreds of emails exchanging over, and what stands behind all of those words that you've put together, matching that up to the schools that you on board instead of just thinking, with a commercial head on and growth.
And how do they, what's the process that they go through to match those, academies to the trust? What is that? Have they divulged that with you? Is there a process that they go through?
Yeah, so along with a lot of interaction between trustees, governors of the individual schools. I think a lot of the challenges come around your internal fires to try and put out. A big part of that being concerns over jobs, and a lot of people don't like change, do they? So that's always something to address, more immediate on in the process. But yeah, in terms of onboarding those new schools, looking at how that school is currently performing, what value you can bring to that school as a trust. Is it going to be a school where they need a lot of time to develop and improve from an inadequate to a good school? Or is it a school that's actually performing really well and you want to leave them to their own devices? So
Yeah, and even perhaps the school can bring some expertise or skill set that the trust doesn't have. And actually you'd be looking to onboard that school specifically to bring that skill set in to help that process, that development, I guess.
Yeah,
definitely.
We've certainly spoken to a number of smaller trusts that are very much looking that way, aren't they? They're looking at their growth at being how they bring in those additional skill sets and what strength that's going to bring to them in the future. So I suppose the visions and values that you were talking about is where they are now, but also where they're trying to be and what they're trying to create from that sort of growth, rather than it just being bigger, actually developing and being different and being stronger in the future.
Yeah, and you hear the term shared vision as well a lot. And the shared vision shouldn't be just a shared vision of the executive leadership team within a trust. It should be the shared vision of head teachers, school business managers, all the way down to, how a classroom operates. So yeah, you hear shared vision bounced around a lot as well.
Yeah.
You were talking about that sort of onboarding of a new school. So the sort of MAT leaders that you've chatted with, what sort of lessons have they shared with you when they've been through that? Is there anything they do different when they do it next time?
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of there's only a small amount of trusts currently who have gone through the kind of merger process, and growing is something constantly going on across trusts of 2 schools all the way up to 20 plus. I think one of the things that they would always want to do differently is addressing those internal challenges first. So before marketing and branding this out to parents and the wider school staff, putting out the internal fires, how do you go from 2 CEOs down to 1? Mm-hmm. Do you adapt how your trust is structured? Because like David just mentioned, by picking up new schools, you often find that there's a whole new skill set that you bring into that table and those meetings. Now, you might have someone with a background in building and construction previously, and you might not currently have someone around that table with that knowledge. So yeah, I would say it's addressing those internal challenges first, specifically around teams.
And I think that's really important, that the internal comms around bringing another school or schools or merging 2 trusts together is so important. We had a conversation, Mark, with Justin Smith, who mentioned, a school looking to improve their income generation, and that's just one, tiny fraction of what we're talking about here. And they didn't realize that they had an experienced income generation person within the school that had worked for trusts in the past and was probably more skilled than everybody, even Justin, in terms of doing that specific role. And it wasn't until they were until the opportunity was communicated internally with them, that person then raised their hand and said, well, I've done that before. And I think there needs to be that opportunity to give people a voice to search out the people with the right skills that can really help trust. So I think that comes internally is really important to start with, getting that right.
Yeah. Definitely. So my mum works within education, and I remember when a trust were coming on board to bring on her academy, and she was coming home every night, not particularly wanting change. So it's always that side of things and worry around how much is going to change. Is my job role going to change? Who else am I competing with even? So it's certainly something that Nick Osborne, for example, at Maritime Academy Trust, he spoke about how that was not something that he'd changed, but something that he did well. He knew he did well. He put out those internal fires first. So
very good. And you've mentioned your mum there, actually, and what we haven't done is brought up your photograph yet. And I'm sure this photograph that we're going to bring up on screen now is the one that your mum's provided, because there's a lovely teddy bear there with you.
I honestly think if you brought the teddy bear along, we wouldn't be able to tell the two pictures apart. Haven't
I've had a few occasions where I've walked up to people at conferences, and they've thought.
They asked you, are you lost?
Well, actually, I have a funny story from when I went on work experience in year 10. And we took year 5s and 6s to a museum. And I remember the museum guide grouped everyone together and grouped me in with the year 6s. So yeah, what a compliment. Yeah.
I mean, the very fact that you call it year 10, Matt, to be honest, that's fifth form, isn't it? That's
fifth form, yeah.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah,
we do that to everyone, Matt. We're not picking on you. Well, we are actually. Of course, we're picking on you, but yeah, very good.
No, it's a very nice photograph.
It is. Very proud of that. Have you still got the teddy bear?
I wouldn't even know. I'm trying to think about where that actually was, and whether it was like a photography studio that comes into your school, or whether it was something externally. I really can't remember. Yeah, even though it was only a few years ago.
Tuesday. So we were just getting on to the topic of sort of MAT mergers, and obviously with recent government announcements as to their vision for MATs moving forward. There's going to be lots more of that. So what advice, Matt, would you give to trusts that are in that position and looking at those sorts of mergers at the moment?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, because there's next to no resources out there, which was hence the conference, actually. There was a really good white paper out there around trust mergers. And like you say, government have now brought out a little bit more guidance on it, but that wasn't actually the case even 12 months ago. So there's certainly this movement towards single academy trusts, and maybe they weren't what they were meant to be or what they anticipated they should be. So there's certainly going to be a push or a movement towards single academy trusts merging with MATs. But yeah, my advice would be it's tough. I mean, some of the MAT leaders that have gone through mergers that I know had digged around on Google for how to go about mergers.
Really?
Some people which is a terrifying thing, because there's so many children behind that decision. But I mean, even the labelling, some would question, is it a merger or is it an acquisition? Because in a business world, you'd probably call it an acquisition. So, but yeah, what I would say is dig around, get as much information as possible. I know that there's the DFE have just released a new edition of their Building Stronger Trusts white paper, and there's now a new page that's been included on there, page 18 on mergers. So I'd inform everyone to go in that direction.
Yeah, and there's things like, obviously, the Trust Capacity Fund. I think it's on number 3 now, isn't it? Level 3. And you've got organisations like Premier Advisory Group who are supporting trusts with those applications. So I think the support is out there if you know where to look. And that's something that we've been pushing a little bit more recently. We're partnering with those organisations that can provide trusts with advice and guidance and support. Even just with raising finances and income generation, because it must be quite daunting when you are, very small trust of maybe 2 schools, and you're looking to merge with another trust and or even grow your own, and then where do you start? What's step one? So I can imagine it's quite daunting.
Yeah, definitely. And, amongst all of that, a pandemic too. One of the trust leaders that I spoke to had kind of pros and cons on that, because we were having a lot more meetings virtually. But then all of the extra work being thrown on top of, not just making sure school performance is good, but going through a merger as well, which still 18 months on, is still an ongoing process. But probably one of my favourite quotes out of any of the MAT leaders that I've spoken to is, "It will be the best audit you will ever do." Going through a merger will uncover problems. It'll uncover what you're strong at. When you put your two trusts up against each other, you'll see who ticks what boxes better than the other. So one MAT leader that I spoke to was saying it was the best audit we could have possibly ever done, and you learn a lot from that, which I thought was great.
Yeah, that is interesting. And can I ask, and you may or may not be able to tell us, but what other events you've got coming up that will support trusts in this way? Because obviously we attended the last one. We thought the information and the speakers were fantastic. Really a great forum to provide that information. So there must be more coming up. And
I think the guy who talked about branding and marketing was particularly good. He was.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
Very engaging. Yeah.
I think his name was Mark. Yeah. So coming up next is the second edition to MAT Growth and Merger conference on Tuesday, the 5th of October. So we've got two trust leaders who have gone through mergers. One of them, again, Nick Osborne. He could have had all day on his session. I remember running the session and he had something like 20 plus questions that came through right at the end, asking him, questions of great detail. And then some other sessions on the agenda as well. From the other side of the debate, why grow? Why would you, how much are you willing to give away to grow? So I think it'll be really interesting to hear that side of things as well. And maybe the reluctance that's out there. Other conferences, not particularly surrounding growth and mergers, but MAT Finance, a MAT Finance conference, that'll be running on the 14th of October, and then a MAT School Improvement Conference on the 9th of November.
Right, okay. That's keeping you
nice
busy.
And varied. Yes, very busy.
I'm assuming sort of further details on all that is on the Convenzis website. We'll pop that on screen at the end, along with your contact details. Matt, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for answering our daft questions. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for bringing my photo up.
No, you're more than welcome. That's always a pleasure.
And obviously we look forward to seeing you at the event in October, where we'll be speaking again. Look forward to that. And in the meantime, thanks for your time, Matt. It's great to see you.
All right.
Great to see you, Matt.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Bye now.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!